Welcome back to the Finding Flow podcast. I just want to take a quick second to thank our sponsors, the Inflow Wellness Academy, located in Plymouth, Michigan. They offer some amazing services that can help you better achieve these states of flow by optimizing your health and your wellness. Their services include personal training for general population, for athletes, for just about anybody. They offer pain modalities like massage therapy, laser therapy, yoga, durability classes, and they're experts in nutrition and supplementation. So if you're really looking to take your health and your body and your wellness to the next level, that's the place to be. That's the place to seek out. You can find them at inflowacademy.com. You can find them on Facebook and YouTube at Inflow Wellness Academy and on Instagram at Inflow Academy. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get the ball rolling.
Everything changes.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back. It's a long-awaited podcast. We have had a lot going on and a broken microphone and a delay on getting a new one. But here we are with a fresh new microphone. I'm Kevin Lowers alongside the powerful Benjamin Knapp.
Yes, I am.
What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm great, man. I'm glad to be back online. So I'm thankful for our new microphone, but I'm also thankful for some of the reasons that we've been kind of slow at getting back at our very deep, mindful thoughts recorded.
Yeah, I just feel like people need to hear us speak our minds.
I have felt just a very widespread void. Like when you see people driving, like they're just like, what the, what am I? They don't even know who they are.
Well, they probably not listen to the Inflow Wellness or the Finding Flow podcast.
That's what I'm saying. So they went to our channel and it was just.
Yeah, well, with the 2 weeks of absence, like the world almost fell apart.
Right.
I mean,
and we were told that after a couple of weeks that we would completely lose our audience. So I'm hoping that has not in fact happened, and we're going to come back with a very powerful episode of the Finding Flow. So, Mom, thanks for tuning in. And just try to listen a little longer than now.
Well, shout out to our 6 listeners.
We love you guys.
Yeah.
Love you. I'm one of them.
Yeah, I listen. I don't ever listen to my own voice. I hate it. So I think I've listened to like maybe 3 of these, but like parts of them, not all the way through.
So they say, like to procrastinate something kind of kills desire. So why, what took us so long? What's going on?
I don't know. I think we've kind of hit a sweet spot with the business, and we're all pretty heavily focused on that, And obviously the podcast is an extension of the business, so it was definitely in our minds to get that mic and get back on. But I think it was just one of those things, with the influx of new clients, the summer warm weather, wanting to be outside. I think we just kind of let it slip a little longer than we had planned, but. We got the mics and, we scheduled it out, and here we are recording on this fine Monday afternoon.
It has been a pretty kick-ass quarter for us. It's like, you and I were talking a little bit earlier, and I had one of the guys that ran here. He was recommending a new business strategy book for us, and talking about I think it was called Building the Story or something like that. So it's a business book or whatever, and he's and he was excited about it. He read it, and he says a lot of us like to say, well, a lot of it I knew, but a couple things really jumped off the page, and that's kind of like life as a sticky note. I love that philosophy. I love every great thing that I hear. I should have like a big sticky note wall where I'm forced to read all these different ideas of these quote things I know, but yet I've forgotten. So, but he was talking about that. He's like, well, how much? He was asking me, well, how much time do you spend reading business books? And I said, well, what's interesting is I probably should do more of it, but I don't. It's like I don't really know where. I mean, I know that you have to have a business. You have to have a business framework. You have to have a business blueprint, or that's why a lot of businesses fail, because they're ran on just emotion, but they don't really have if somebody's really passionate about something, but they don't have it all fine tuned. They don't have little particulars. They don't have good customer service. So, what was I saying?
Talking about that book.
Yeah, but anyways, so it's interesting. I spend most of my time, I don't know, man, I've just been fascinated by keeping my mind in the cosmos. It's like I'm always looking at a bigger picture. Like I bought that Tibetan book of the Tibetan Book of Living and Tibetan Book of Dying or whatever. So it sounds morbid, but it's like if you want to get excited about life and really the small chance that any of us even had on being born, I'd rather like create a little bit more enthusiasm for just life in general. And I feel like good business, good business can come from that. I think good business can come from just being excited about your days and communicating. Me and you have been communicating well, and the coaching meetings we've been having with Coach Dan. It's really there's a certain like flow state that I think we're all in right now. And I mean that's how you identified how you've been feeling the last couple of weeks, and that is totally how I've been feeling. So yeah, I've just been spending time in the cosmos, and basically my point was that our business has really taken some strides. Hardcore forward, like we're really starting to see, the fruit of our labors and our vision kind of come to fruition a little bit, and it's fun, and it's cool that it's happening, by almost like by indirect ways, like not necessarily from linear things, again, like doing this kind of advertisement and working with this kind of business coach. I think it's just been a few dudes really embracing their craft, working hard, showing up on time, giving our clients service, and yeah, man, we've just been getting busy.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head, though. I mean, when you're reading business books, like we're in the service industry, right? So if we can make like ourselves intoxicating in the way that like our minds are ones that are I guess unusual in a positive way, then it's gonna be that law of attraction, right? So I think you're probably doing more for the business by trying to build yourself up, whatever that means. For me, like reading. I've read quite a few business books. I think all of us entrepreneurs have, and they're dry and dull and like A plus B equals C type of stuff, and same with like the self-help books. Like every once in a while, if I just need a great little pick-me-up, I'll kind of swing through a few that I'll reread ones that at one point changed my life. But at this point, it is stuff that I kind of know, and most of those self-help books are kind of the same principle written in a bunch of different ways. So finding like that next level of education that you need to continue to expand yourself as a person. And I think we're all kind of doing that in our own ways. And I think I align a little more closely with you. Like I enjoy books that just are – I just have a very curious mind. Mm-hmm. And my curious mind doesn't get – I don't know that I can cater to it with dry business books and dry finance books. And like I've read like a couple of those books, and I think I have a pretty good grasp on like the essentials of running a business and the essentials of making sure I'm not, blowing all my money and I'm investing it, pretty correctly. Like, could I get better at it? Of course. Yeah. But again, when you weigh out the time of the day, especially now that it's summertime, like I just built this garden. I got my kale, my spinach growing.
Are they popping?
Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah, they made it through the dry spell of those 40-degree days. I was a little nervous, but
you got a ton of rain this weekend.
Lots of rain. So I got some other seeds that I plan to plant in the next couple of weeks here. But I want to be outside. I don't want to be cooped up, and I don't want to be sitting there like reading a business book reminds me of just being stuck inside on a rainy day.
Absolutely.
Like reading a book about the cosmos makes me feel like I'm outside,
Absolutely.
like under the stars.
Absolutely.
So
I like to experience something when I read.
Yeah.
I like to go on a journey.
Yeah, I gave you that island book we were just talking about before we started. It's Aldous Huxley. If anybody's listening and if anybody that has a curious mind, that like has an open mind, read that book because it is like life altering. I mean, behind Shoe Dog, the best book I've ever read in my life. Shoe Dog still stands tall as the greatest. I read it. I listened to it, which made it that much better, I think, because Phil Knight actually narrates it. Actually, no, he doesn't. Does he? No, he doesn't. He talks in a few parts of it, but that book, he wrote it. Phil Knight actually wrote the book, but that book is Nike is just a crazy brand, man. After reading that autobiography by him, so that's cool. You got to put that one on the list too.
Yeah, it's an extensive list. It's a growing list, but I get excited, man. Like some people are critical. I've heard not some people, but I've read some authors talk about how you don't need to be going through so many books. You need to probably be rereading the ones that you've already read to really because you've missed some things. And I'm like, well, fuck. There's so many freaking books and podcasts and just a lot of really resourceful information. I just feel like I'm getting what I need, And so, it's like our business has gotten better over the last couple of months, how does one measure the progress? Where did the progress come from? Did it come from the fact that, I put a logo on our intake forms? Like, is that why more people are coming in here? You know, is it because we have a dumpster blocking our front door, you know, out in front of the building because they're doing massive construction? Is that why people are here? Like, no, we don't even have a sign. We don't even have a sign. We just changed our business cards. We should have brochures, but we don't.
We don't have anything.
We don't have anything.
We just have word of mouth.
You know, so when you
and a mediocre website that I built on Wix in like 2 days.
Right. So, but I think it's a reminder. I think it's a reminder. Like, there's a lot of little things that we should always be doing, you know, to be more complete. But I had to use a scale because, like, we talk about our kids. You have to create, like you said, your kid, you know, Dad, let's just do it in like 40,000 minutes. You know, it's like, it's funny when you tell me those stories, I just die. But so I've got like my daughter, and obviously when you're in middle school and you got puberty and you're starting to get boobs and things like that, like the whole world is upside down, right? So it's like every little thing, whether it's the new kid that's sitting next to her in class or her teacher that doesn't let any of them even look at cell phones during math class, you know, like those are big things. So what I was trying to teach her last night is I was trying to teach her scale. And what I meant by that was I said, okay, so to exist as a human, could you name a few things that you have to have to like be alive? And so she named them off perfectly. She was like food, water, shelter, and it took her a second. She goes, and probably oxygen. And I'm like, yeah, those are all really good things. You know, the shelter, you could still live without it, complete shelter. I said, but yeah, the other things, like if you don't have food, water, and what was the other one?
Oxygen.
Oxygen, yeah. Obviously, I need some. So food, water, like you don't live. Okay, so those are kind of like major things. So in other words, if you come home from school and say, Dad, I just heard that we're going to be out of oxygen. Like we should be panicking, right? Because the end is near. But when you come home and you have the same intensity to say, Dad, there's this new kid sitting next to me and I can't stand him. You know, she almost was giving me the impression that like, oh, I don't care about these things. And I'm like, no, I do care about these. But as a kid, you put everything on the oxygen scale, right? You put the sense of urgency on the food scale. I said, no, you have to learn to create different scales. Like food is important. Like I went to the grocery store today and there was nothing on the shelf. You might want to panic, right? But if there's some jerk kid in my class that makes weird noises, like that's not like on the oxygen or AL scale. Well, my point being is that, again, it's like I love to tell people like, growth is to me, it's rarely linear. It's rarely linear. It's like you got to have a very wide lens. You got to be dabbling in a lot of different things. So to the point of why our business has gotten better, like I have no clue.
I don't know, man. I've been saying this I think since we've gotten to know each other. So I mean I've been with you guys now for almost a year and a half. And then that first couple months I was kind of doing my own thing, but like just kind of learning from you guys. And then obviously we decided to collectively pull it all together and like shapeshift the whole business as a collective, which was probably the best decision we could have ever made.
Oh yeah.
But I've been saying it like that. When we get people in our doors, they stay, right? It's like we know what we're good at, right? And we know what we're not very good at. Mm-hmm. What we're not very good at is getting brochures made and getting signage and going out and like pulling. We're not salespeople, even though we have to play one, right? Like we're good at what we do, which is like making people live a healthier, more fulfilled life, right? So I think like now that we're getting a few more people in here, we had this group on going through, so we're just getting some more faces walking through. I mean, we're retaining so much of them, and I literally think that that's the success. It's just been an exposure issue. It's hard to get that exposure when you're a private studio and you're not storefront. We don't even, like you said, we don't even have a sign. The building we're located in currently looks like it's an insane asylum. So like there's a few things going against us. But once we get people in the door, we're different, right? Because why? We've been talking a lot about what we do differently, and it's that we're not a training studio. We modify behavior for a living. Right, and I love that. I love that about what we're trying to accomplish here, and whatever that means to make somebody's life a little bit better. So I've been saying this with the lens of my therapeutic practice, right, where people get into the nitty gritty. They'll be like, like same kind of thing. Like I don't really care where the success of your pain going away comes from. Like whether it's the sauna, my massage, the CBD cream, the movement,
placebo,
the nutrition, the water, the increase in sleep, like. It doesn't matter. Do you feel better?
Yep.
And they go, yeah. And I'm like, then just keep doing all that stuff because, first of all that stuff's amazing for you even if you weren't hurt in the first place. Like these are the things that you have to sustain to not get hurt again. So it's like you don't come and see me for 6 weeks, learn all these things, and then now that you feel better, you just go back to your dog shit life.
Right.
You know? So I think like we're getting that message across really good. And I've been just getting a lot of feedback from our clients, and it's a lot of people are just kind of saying like, I'm just going to do this forever. You know, it's not, we're not, I don't want to be that studio where people show up for 3 months and then leave. Like, because then they go back to whatever mediocre life they were living before. Like, and the more we can create a culture and a tribe of very like-minded people, all drinking their mineral water with lemon in it in the morning, taking their cold showers, drinking their bulletproof coffee, intermittent fasting, time-restricted eating, getting 8 hours of sleep a night, and then, like, getting out in nature and having, you know, really positive conversations that are uplifting. You know, that's like, I think that's how you change the world. Yeah. Right? And then those people go tell. I mean, I had a client the other day say, like, I taught my boss. I showed my boss how to roll out his quads because they're always tight. You know, or I'm showing my mom how to do, like, you know, all fours crawling. And I'm like, see, now, and then maybe she'll teach somebody and they'll teach somebody. And then maybe Michigan won't be such a nightmare. That's cool.
Like even, for in our business, and that's what it is. I think all of us, you know, Dan, Coach Dan, you know, is definitely just like that. Like he really, and I've complimented him. I said, we're all building like individual brands. Like I'm building the Ben brand, you're building a Kevin brand, and Dan's building a Dan brand. And I think it's great. And I used to suffer with that, you know, back when I was just a single, you know, trainer. I had my own business, no help or whatever. You know, it's like even though I was the only one in there, it was important that we established a hierarchy. You know, like I'm the owner and this is how it goes. And I think even when I first started, you know, working with Dan as my first like extra trainer, I feel like I may have spent maybe too much thought on that or maybe too much time on that, like about, you know, making sure that everybody clearly understood, well, whose gym is this and who is in charge around here? And now it's like I'm motivated now by being forgotten. Like I just want people to talk about inflow. I just want people to talk about, you know, being well and liking who they are now and wanting to discover more. You know, so the mastery of self-discovery and continuing to try to unlock new doors. You know, like if you get a taste of something new, why would you ever stop? Like, is there more? It's kind of like drugs. You know, if you have one glass of wine, that was fun. Let's see what 8 does. You know, you know. So obviously, I think you can overindulge on certain aspects of personal development. But I love that. I love how you've accepted the challenge to be the best version of Kevin you can be. And that means father, that means soon-to-be husband, that means friends, and that all means being a colleague. And you're being reliable to me and to Dan, and we're swapping clients, and you take our clients, and well, because they're all our clients, but you quickly will throw them on the table and move people around. And our clients see that too, that we can just break stride and do whatever it needs to happen to get better. And I think that's why if I wrote a business book, I don't know, it would either be like 4 pages or it would be like 4,000 pages. You know what I mean? I'd probably have a lot of and-ums in there, but it's all about self-discovery. And it's cool that we have chosen an industry and we've chosen each other and to where we can really be expressive. We can express ourselves in the ways that is not part of a business blueprint. It's just like, again, it's like meditation. I started doing it. I started enjoying it. So what did I do? I brought it into the business. Yeah. And I said, I don't know. I started doing this. I'll try it. Like, how could I ask somebody to do a program I've never been on myself? Yeah. We get paid to like it's helping our business by becoming better at making other people better. Yeah. So we have to be better first. Yeah. You know, like I once worked for a guy and like you know, I'm super grateful for all the experiences I had with it, and it kind of went a little salty. I just had differing opinions in the end, you know, and that's why I ended up leaving. But like I could tell he wasn't aligned with like health and wellness at a certain point. It became too much about business and numbers, money, you know. And like for me, again, we all got to make money, right? And I can be the first person to talk about that. You know, I've been struggling since I had my son and I moved out 4 or 5 years ago. It's been nothing but like, you know, do we got enough? Do we got enough? Do we got enough? But I'm very thankful today that I had like the foresight for whatever reason to like not settle on a job that would be miserable and like just to keep allowing myself to pursue what I love and try to make money doing it. And like, you know, it's kind of this cool thing, like with this increase in, you know, as the business grows, like my paychecks get bigger. So it's like, it's all in my control, you know, so I'm just betting on myself one day at a time. And betting on myself means making myself better, right? To your point, you know,
we read a cool book and we get some deep science on, jump starting, your day with mineral water and lemon and a cold shower and some breathing exercises and some light movement. Boom, like 20 of our clients start doing it and they all walk in at 5:30 like, let's do this.
Yep.
And again, it's just one of those things. It's fun to be able to get better and then to share that and to get paid for it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sell Cutco knives.
Right.
Like I can only tell you how nice this knife is compared to the knife you have, and then you run into you knock on the door and someone goes, listen, I spent $3,000 on my knives. Like I bought them from like an actual boutique, and you're like, well, these are Cutco.
I think that's a little bit of a fear in most industries. Again, if you want to open up an Ace Hardware store, the first thing that comes into my mind is, where the hell's the Home Depot?
Yeah, right.
How close are they to me? Because they're going to crush me in prices.
Yeah.
But why do but if I were the Ace Hardware, I'd be like, look, I'm selling screws, I'm selling screwdrivers, and I got some, and I've got some, Christmas trees off in the corner. So I can't compete with Home Depot, right?
I guess it's if you. I think it just comes back to like, if you love hardware. Like and then you have just a halfway decent business mind. I literally think those are the two little recipes for success. Like you need to have, obviously passion can't work without like some logic and intelligence, right? Which isn't hard. I think that could be learned. It's hard to learn the passion.
Yeah.
I actually read something the other day that was kind of cool, which was I'm trying to think what book it came from. I didn't read the book, but I saw someone quoting it. But they were basically saying like stop saying follow. Jesus, bro. Put your phone on silent and it still vibrates.
Well, it's an Android.
That's an Android.
Dude,
we just lost like 30 listeners. Because you're damn Android.
I'm dying.
But yeah, so the guy was just saying, don't like follow your passion, like follow what you're good at. And then as you cultivate skill, you develop passion. Like again, there's that curve, right? Is it the Talent Code talks a lot about this. Mastery talks a lot about this. Robert Greene, just about there's these kind of levels and stages of like proficiency that lead to like enjoyment. Like I used to work at a factory, and when I first started there, and I was doing this manual, monotonous labor, it was miserable. But then after a couple of months, I got so good at it, and then like you start to see how much better you are at other people than doing these little monotonous tasks, and then you actually like I wouldn't say that I enjoyed it, but like it became tolerable because I became dependent upon and I was good at it, and I don't think I was going to develop passion for building drive-through screens for Taco Bell, but I think it's anything you find passion for or you're good at, and then you can develop passion out of that skill set. So I guess if you're a big old hardware guy and you open up that Ace Hardware and you're all about it, you could still compete. Yeah. Or you got to figure out how to be different, right?
I feel like unless you're like one of our clients is a professional poker player just recently, but I think about maybe besides that, I think if money's your number one motivating factor, I have to assume I'll go 9 out of 10. You freaking hate your job because the only thing that you're thinking about is money, 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 right? So, but it's like it's nice to say, well, no, I don't make a lot of money, but I love what I do. It doesn't mean that you have to be broke to love what you do, right? But again, just to both of our points is it is cool to, even during the times of tough times, I still knew to leave this industry, I'd be quitting in a sense. You know what I mean? So like when you can be profitable by enhancing the human potential, there's got to be worse ways of making money.
And I think when we shapeshifted, man, I mean, I know we all put a lot of thought into it, but again, when I left, I had written up a business plan because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I kind of abruptly quit my job with no income and a lot of bills to pay. It was a pretty nerve-wracking experience. But I mean, I always had the intention that I wanted to start a wellness center. Like I always liked the idea of like having a global approach because like we get so stuck in our ways. Like, oh, I do yoga. It's like good. Like you also should be lifting weights. And yeah, like there's got to be an and. Like, oh, you go to the cycle bar. Like you can't become your greatest self just cycling. Like you're already 10 steps ahead of most people that aren't doing anything. But again, like we've talked about it on here, levels. It's like if gummy worms were your cheat meal today, like hopefully raspberries will be your cheat meal tomorrow, So there's these levels and having that global approach right out the gate where people walk through our doors that aren't aren't educated, and we can say like, listen, there's you need to train, and you also need to roll around, and you also need to breathe and hop in that sauna and get a massage, and optimize your nutrition, drink more water. Like, have you ever had a hug? Do you need a hug?
Right.
Like, and we've been talking a lot about this, because we have a lot of very high level athletes in here where it's a non-negotiable to be 110% because they're trying to make $1 million in sport. They're trying to find every edge they can. But like for our weekend warrior and general pop clients, they just want to feel better. And what does that mean? We don't have to get super involved in like every mechanical movement. We just got to give you safe, effective movements and then safe, effective recoveries and then tell you you're doing a good job every day.
That's why I think sometimes I struggle with, man, I'm glad we have Coach Dan because I struggle with what is the most important thing to do, say, with athletes. Again, they're always 110% all the time. They're being told what to do all the time, exactly how to work all the time. So it's really hard to say, I've got these guys for 3 months. They're trying to make the next team. Maybe we should just have them meditate today.
Yeah, right.
But it sucks because when it comes to the athletes, I'm not as comfortable recommending that to somebody. It's like, but one of our athletes, Aaron, him and I were having a conversation last week, and he was just talking about like how banged up he was, and you could almost tell he was like nervous mentioning it, like as if I was going to say, "Oh, what are you, some kind of a sissy or something?" And I'm like, "Well, then let's not train today." And he was just like, "What? I can do that?" And I'm like, "Dude, yeah.
You got to communicate with us."
Yeah, that's what I said. I said, we just beat you because sometimes I think we assume that that's what's best. But no, man, have you went, again, to that point, have you went for a walk? Have you played video games? Have you just had a sandwich and watched a movie? Again, what does it take to make somebody better? I don't know. Whatever you're not putting any effort into, that's what I think.
Yeah.
So could I make so I'm reluctant because you can't buy an athletic development book, and look at all the gurus out there. In chapter 1, learning when not to train. Like, they don't write those fucking chapters. Those chapters don't exist.
Yeah.
It's like, so it's like I worry about that a little bit, and I'm like, well, why don't you just go home and take a nap? And
it's hard because just so many stigmas and, again, lack of education in the general population, right? And I think that's why with us trying to get away from saying like, oh, we're a gym, it's helping us bridge those gaps because people walk in, the amount of times I've had to tell people like, you don't need to feel a burn to like have a good workout. Like training sessions have different objectives. Like maybe one day, if you're seeing me 5 days a week, yeah, I'll definitely crush you one of those days. But to do that to you every time and then to associate a good training session with the fact that you like feel like you're dead walking out is delusional.
Absolutely.
There's zero science behind it, and it makes absolutely no sense from a growth perspective. And it's just your own idiosyncrasies and inability to get past like what you think is right versus what's actually right. So like trying to fight these. I think that's the other thing I struggle with because again in that context, like you recommend meditation, like it's kind of wacky. Mm-hmm. But again, you inherently know. I mean, I inherently know from the effects I've had personally, my own experience, and then the experience I've had from people that actually buy in. We go back to creating buy-in. But again, if the better we can start to bridge this gap behind like we're not a gym, just like working out's a part of our model because to become your best self, like you have to have some sort of physical outlet, right? You have to drain that battery, otherwise you're going to be the dick on the road that's flipping people off all the time. So like having those conversations with someone that's, I guess, not aware of the importance of like doing like an all force cat breathing when they signed up thinking they're going to like be doing burpees and like TRX jump squats for like 45 minutes because they came from Fit Body Boot Camp. And like we're just staring at them with their adrenal fatigue and their banged up body, and like you don't even need to work out for the next 2 weeks. Right. Like you're like, here's $500. Like go on a vacation.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean? Like don't let's get going. Use the $500 you're going to spend here and go on a vacation for this month, and then come and see us. Like refreshed, recharged, and ready to actually get on a program that makes sense instead of just like up and down and down and up. And I'm going to crush your soul for 40 minutes and send you on your way. Mm-hmm. How many of those people have we had to talk off the ledge in the last year and a half?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So just the self-discovery, I think it's all got to start there. I just don't see how anybody can embark on anything new, whether it's going back to college or starting a new job or dating somebody new or without doing some internal work, without actually sitting down and almost having like an out-of-body experience and saying, okay, like, where do I lack? What is it I've worked hard at? I've told a lot of our clients and a lot of people in general, I guess I refer to everybody as our clients because that's who I interact with, but I despise the person who is no more knowledgeable today than they were yesterday. It's like we should be learning something, but then as you learn, right, you become more ignorant.
Yeah.
Because you realize that there's so much more out there. So it's like, again, what is our role? What is our responsibility? Well, you got to create buy-in. If you don't have buy-in, you don't have clients. But yeah, just trying to have people just take a more abstract look at what it means to develop, over time. So I like where we're going. I like the reason why we haven't gotten around to a couple of podcasts. They were justifiable to our audience, but I think it's a great segue. I think we did a lot of great things with the downtime. Again, we really got into the business. We've gotten really busy, and so I think it's we were forced to shape shift, and we did, and now we're back. We're back to hopefully our regularly scheduled program. So what is it we're going to talk about today? I think we both know. We're going to talk about, I think, the push-pull system, right?
Yeah.
The spread of existence is what I titled that, the spread of existence.
The duality.
Which is essentially non-dual.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Brain just exploded.
Yeah, we need like a sound,
Seriously.
a sound over like that, like that's a mic drop.
When you talk, I just want like a really like transient, like low, maybe like binaural beats kind of thing going on, and I want you just to go down just like an octave. Just talk a little bit more mellow when you say things like push-pull, anti-duality.
So even if people are listening to this on like 1.5 times, they're still only going to hear like 3 words an hour.
Yeah, so it's just like
Don't.
Like we're just trying to like seduce our audience like into believing what we want.
And get them all nassered.
Yeah, right. The best thing, you know what the coolest thing is, one more piece about like kind of what we're doing is I'll find myself when I find this, it's been going on a lot lately because I think what we're creating is what I've always wanted to create, right? When I left my last job, I kind of talked about it. It was more just training, a lot of boot camps, and it was like I felt like I was beating people to the ground more than I was building them up. So I left, with the intention I wanted to be a part of like a wellness center. That's why I became a licensed massage therapist too, because that would, kind of come full circle. But like I find myself now like sitting down with people and I can just like vomit out like a sales pitch without even doing it because I'm trying to get these people to change their damn lives. You tell me you eat Fruity Pebbles for breakfast. I'm like, you are fucked up. Like, we got to work on this. Like, you have to be here.
Footnote for anybody that is eating Fruity Pebbles, Apple Jacks. There is no apple in Jacks.
And no fruit.
There is no fruit in Fruity Pebbles. So just a little Kellogg's, my bad. Or who else is out there? Who else makes cereal?
I don't know. Kellogg's.
Is it Post?
Post? Is that? I don't know. Kashi?
I'm making shit up. It shows you how long it's been since I've had cereal.
I know Kellogg's still crushes the game, though.
Dude, incredible. What a great company.
Unbelievable. Again, well, and so my point is I find myself having these conversations and I can kind of, I guess, convince people. I don't want it to come off like culty, but it's like I want to get more people to see the world the way that we're seeing the world. Because again, it will absolutely make the quality of their life better, right? And I'm reading this book all about the evolution of the human body, right? And I love this idea of like evolutionary mismatch. It's like, why are we struggling so much when things are so easy? Like if a hunter-gatherer walked into a grocery store, they'd be like, the fuck is all this? Like, I don't got to walk 7 miles every day to get like one beetroot and live off of it for 3 days. Like, I can just buy meat and like any vegetable I want.
Wow.
And Fruity Pebbles and Apple Jacks. Like,
with no fruit.
Yeah, no fruit, zero. But again, like I want people to understand like how much better their life can be. But at the same time, I don't want to be too pressing with that sale. But my point is on the evolutionary mismatch is it's like society has led us to not live the way that like we're biologically set up to live. So now like most of these diseases are arising from that. Everything from psychological to actual physical diseases that you're seeing just like an uproar in, right? Like depression and anxiety specifically. Like we're not aligning with what our body needs. And I think you can supplement that, right? And I think that's what we're trying to do. Yeah, we're not going to be able to like go out and live in huts anymore and gather all day and like have like this very organic way of living because it's 2018
it's
and
not sustainable.
3 billion people now live in cities.
Right.
So you couldn't sustain that. You're exactly right. So how can we take these evolutionary mismatches and like disable them in a modern way? And I almost feel like that's what we're trying to do. It's like, your body needs this. How can we create it in 2018? You know, so obviously, again, like back to going out in nature, I think that always kind of comes full circle. I think everybody feels better when they do that, right? But that idea of this evolutionary mismatch is so cool to me, and I feel like we're kind of trying to fill that gap. I just want to have one more little point before we get into the push-pull.
Well, it's ultimately the same point, even the push-pull. So when you're looking at, like, think about the analogy I used earlier about the magnitude of stress from the daughter. In other words, oxygen is something to stress out over. You know, bratty kids in school are not. They're not on the same scale. So I guess this talk we called it the push-pull, and I don't want to. I guess I could call it mine. Just to me, there are different levels of existence, kind of like the band. I've probably mentioned it on the podcast. There's the band Sublime, and at the end of one of their songs, it says, how you finish a lot of times depends on where you begin. You know what I mean? And I think there's some truth to that. So again, if you've got somebody, so what I mean by that is, let's say you were born in the inner city and there's a lot of like gang banging and stuff like that. You know, when you're in kind of a culture like that, it's probably
What kind of gang banging?
Kind of.
What kind? I mean, what kind? Like, or,
yeah, like.
I mean,
dude, that's terrible.
I know. I'm so sorry. You just like.
I meant the other.
I thought you were gonna get that right away, and you didn't. Like.
No, I guess being a gangster, like shooting and drugs. And,
I thought for like a solid 30 seconds if I should drop it, and then it just came out.
And you did.
And
and here we are now.
Yeah, then we just lost another.
We got to go in that rabbit hole.
We lost another 30.
Sorry, Mom.
Yeah, we lost 30 with the Android comment and 30 with the gangbang comment.
Yeah.
So,
but just so you know, Android supporters, I have actually turned my phone on mute, so there's no more vibrate.
It's probably gonna go off nice and loud.
Yeah, so the push-pull, man, it's like how you start is sometimes how you finish. The push-pull concept to me is about you have a bottom. You have like if I just join our gym today on day one, let's assume I don't have the greatest habits. You know, maybe exercise is not a big part of my life. You know, in other words, on day one, you know, maybe a cheat meal basically is like a pizza and a Miller Lite. Like, you know, that's so if that's my bottom, if that's like my worst meal, well, it's probably going to reflect my best meal. I think my best meal is only going to scalably go just a skosh higher than that. So maybe my best meal is maybe just a protein shake, right? Maybe that's the smartest way that I know how to eat now. So, you know, my cheat meal is pizza and beer, and the best meal I've ever eaten is a protein shake. So it's like scales. And so to me, the push-pull basically means if we're going to continue to push like our understanding, our knowledge, our goals, in other words, hitting goals and then setting new ones, to go higher, I feel like you have to pull your minimum level up too. So it's like just like in a corporation, like the hierarchy. So if you're going to take over your boss's role, you got to have somebody that can replace you. Right, so that's the push-pull. So in other words, on day one of a dietary journey, if you will, yeah, like maybe we justify that crappy cheat meal. But by day 250, let's say I'm just starting to eat excellently, like I'm using, you know, I'm creating my own homemade bone broth, and I'm making, you know, homemade stews, and I'm actually got, you know, I got some femur bones from the butcher, and you know I'm starting to make some really, you know, nutritious bone marrow plasma based stew. Well, if I'm doing that type of work on a great day, I should be well beyond having pizza and beer as my cheat meal. So now maybe my cheat meal is supposed to be like a grass-fed burger with no bun. You know, maybe I put some bacon and cheese.
Or even like a thin crust gluten-free pizza with chicken and arugula.
Right.
You know, and then like a Tito's and water and lime. You know, I'm just thinking I'm like the scale that I'm currently at after, you know, almost a decade of trying to like be down this path, maybe 6-7 years of it pretty strictly. You know, at this point, like I just know way better. right? And it's in like like understanding the repercussions of eating those foods. So I think you're 100% on it. I love that idea. We've been going back and forth about this idea for the last couple months since you put it in my ear, and I think I still consider it in my own life. Like I was telling you last night, Sunday night, and I was watching the hockey game. Big hockey fan, so I've been staying up a little bit later than I wanted to, watching playoff games, and I was planning not to eat anything, but then, my wonderful fiance walks down with raspberries and, like, dark chocolate. And I'm like, I can eat a few of these. Oh, yeah. I ended up eating way too many. But again, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like me 6 years ago, this is gummy worms and Sour Patch Kids and, like way too many stomach problems that, like, I could never deal with. Right, so you just start to see, like, and for me, I'm still kind of thinking when I'm eating these raspberries and this chocolate that, like, this isn't good because it's 10 o'clock at night. I know better. I know about, usually time-restricted eating. I'm trying to reset. It's going to affect my sleep cycles, my deep sleep, my recovery, and I'm like thinking about all these things as I'm still indulging, right? Mm-hmm. So I guess like creating that awareness at that point, like, and then again, my best meal, like grass-fed steak and sauteed asparagus and grass-fed butter with fresh garlic and a sweet potato, right? It's going to be a little better than a protein shake. Yeah, man. So again, kind of back to creating that awareness for people and trying to get them to understand, like, it doesn't happen overnight. But as I just this is a really cool idea.
Yeah, we touched on, like, again, things like time in nature and meditation. Well, they don't. If you sit in silence for 5 minutes, meditation doesn't feel very profound. It doesn't feel like you've accomplished anything. If anything, it's more frustrating than anything. But it's, again, if we're going to continue to push the top, it's going to take a lot of little like mastering each day. Like, on day one, it might just be getting a workout in and having a post-workout shake. Like, that's mastery. And then the rest of the day, I'm a shithead and I'm an average worker and I still left 5 minutes early and I didn't punch out for lunch. But mastery comes from, again, on day whatever, 1,000, 300, 500, 10,000. Self-mastery is going to have to be, if you're going to continue to push the enlightenment or the knowledge envelope, like, you're going to need those little extra things, right? Because your days, even, again, you go from having a great meal to a post-workout shake to where you're mastering every part of your day. Everything from how I put my feet on the floor, the first thing that I thought about, how I dealt with traffic, what was the first thing that I put into my mouth, things like that. It's like I love the challenge of, okay, well, if I'm trying to get better, then I didn't meditate yesterday, so I'm going to take 5 minutes today and I'm going to add that to today's regimen. So that's pushing my potential for living better and living more, I guess, well. But I also can't go back to the days of old. Like, I can't go back to watching the same old crappy television. Like, I'm hoping, I'm hoping that I just don't want to either. So I think the push-pull thing is also a system that when you adopt it and accept the challenge of the push-pull, I think it's almost impossible to revert back to like old things. Like, they don't even work for anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it should become exponentially more poisonous as you progress. Yeah. Like, what pizza does to your body on day one, it will be exponentially more poisonous and terrible what it will do to you on day 250 if you're following that kind of principle, right? Mm-hmm. So it should theoretically get to the point where, like, you'll no longer want that stuff, which I think is what we find with our clients, what we find with ourselves. Obviously there's a lot of chemical and biological things happening when you eat foods like that. There's a lot of addictive properties both in gluten and sugar, right? Like, gluteomorphine acts on the same opioid receptor sites as drugs do, like opiates. So there's there's a lot more going on than just like stop eating, right? So I think as we create that awareness and people understand, and then once they stop eating that stuff, you don't even want to go back to it. So I think that's kind of that big jump in that step where you start going like, oh, like, I don't even feel like eating that anymore. Or you always hear people say, like, I can't believe I used to do that. Right. Like, me and Mitch, right before we started recording, we're talking about what we used to do in high school. Like, I used to, like, get 2 cinnamon rolls on my way to school, eat them both, like, throw up, go to, like, McDonald's for breakfast, get Wendy's for lunch, and eat Taco Bell for dinner. Yeah. And then, like, when my stomach hurt, I didn't know why. And I would go to doctors, and they would not one doctor asked me what I ate. Like,
Because you're a young kid, you were lean, had an athletic body,
nobody.
and so everything's fine.
It's delusional to me that, like, I got a colonoscopy before I was asked what I'm eating.
Right. And I think that's why, again, our part of our introduction was talking about, some of the changes that have just happened at Inflow. I think it shows the push-pull mentality inside Inflow. Like if we're only going to talk about the 5x5 and how to increase your push press number and everything like that, I think it lacks growth. So people say, well, do you guys still lift? And I'm like, fuck yeah, we lift, man. We lift every day, but we just don't hang our hat on just talking about lifting. Like we want to prepare your mind to lift. We want to prepare your joints to lift, and we want to make sure that remember, a great workout starts the night before, right? You have to have a great night's sleep. You have to be hydrated. You have to get in bed on time. You have to have a certain amount of rest if you're going to hit a PR in the gym. You're not just going to be, slapstick Bob, just waking up and just pulls a PR. Like that shit don't happen.
And you might have hit that PR with adrenal fatigue.
Right.
And just wait. It's coming. You are going to crash and burn. And that's the thing that I don't think people think about with training, and kind of not to shit too much and harp too much on boot camps, but you can't ride in top gear for years without running into a problem eventually. Eventually the engine's going to blow out. And unfortunately, and it's kind of sad because most problems that arise from training aren't they're not quick, right? Traumatic. Traumatic's what I'm looking for. They're not traumatic injuries. They're slow deteriorations, lots of osteoarthritis involved with poor lifting patterns. And that's something that you don't notice until 10 years down the road when you bend down to get your grandkid in your back and your disc explodes. Mm-hmm. But little did you know that, your 10 years of very poor kettlebell swing form probably led to that back going on. So it's kind of sad in that regard. And I think putting the stress on the importance of doing things correctly, which I think we do better than anybody I've ever come into contact with, is so important. And then the education goes on to your point where it's that back is 10 times more likely to go out if you didn't sleep well last night, mm-hmm. or if you're dehydrated, right. or if you're not doing your active recovery, if you can't breathe out of your diaphragm and your cortisol's always spiked. Right. So it's this full circle approach. It's almost like we can't do our job when it comes to the 5x5 PR without also highlighting your nutrition and your sleep and your recovery and your meditation and your mindfulness and the person that you actually are, right? So it's cool stuff.
I just made it up. I said, okay, let's just assume there's 10 levels. There's 10 levels of human development, and on the very bottom rung, you've got, again, we talked about, what do you need? You need food, you need oxygen, and people like to have sex, right? So that's to me, the most primitive things that you don't even have to talk about. If you're a human, you want those three things. You want food, you want oxygen, you want sex, okay? So if that's the entry point to, I'm a human, okay, then you got to look at the very top rung. All right, well, what represents the very top rung? I don't know, Jesus, the idea of Jesus, the concept of oneness with, I don't know what, if you believe, I'm all about a creator. I believe in a creator, so better understanding the world's and the earth's plan. Okay, so if that's maybe the top rung, you can describe that however you'd like. Well, then there's levels in between it. So to me, I think you can live in maybe, say, 5 out of the 10 stages at any one time. In other words, if you're still having pizza and beer every Friday, the chances of you may have flashes of enlightenment where you're very approachable and maybe you can have an in-depth conversation. But on the majority, I think you have to look at that lower rung and then move up 5 spaces, and that's probably your best potential. So in other words, you go back to that inner city gangbanger, maybe they quit the gang, they get a part-time job, they actually work, have a family, have a kid, and give the kid good morals. Maybe that's their enlightenment because of where they started, right? So they optimize those 5 levels. But if we live long enough and we can start pulling that bottom up, remember that cheat meals are starting to become gluten-free, and I don't have ranch anymore, and even if I'm going to drink a beer, it's going to be a gluten-free beer, and it's only going to be on, for these reasons. I think you can start edging up our capacity. But again, as you go up, I think you have to open up the different ways of achieving what I refer to as enlightenment, about how to get to that next level. So again, if you dip your toe into the chaos of, say, religion, and then you spend a lot of time there, and you're loving Jesus and you're singing the hymns and everything like that, well, don't stop there. Don't stop there. Try to get closer. Well, what else can I do? Well, then you start doing Bible studies, and then you start going to Thursday morning, men's only work or women's only services. And I want more. I want to learn more. I want to get deeper. And then maybe you start doing counseling, one-on-one. Well, then maybe you start to even go beyond that, but still seeking. And then you start to get up to another layer of understanding. It's like another layer of consciousness. What in nature doesn't always change? What doesn't always change? So, if you're growing, the things you see, the things that you rationalize, the things that you love, the things that are important to you, shouldn't they always be under a constant state? Shouldn't they always be changing? Or
everything, it has to. There's just no way around it. I mean, there's nothing but change happening all around us all the time. So it's foolish to think that to progress, our mind shouldn't be changing. I guess if you just wanted to think about the nature's law and the fact that everything changes, you should progress towards that, and you should make positive changes, right? You don't want to actively sabotage your life, because I guess change could you could change your life by doing massive amounts of cocaine every day. I guess it's still a change, but I think we all inherently know what the good changes are. It's just about creating whatever it is that allows us to start making those changes. And again, environment, so many things factor in. And even to your point with seeking more, right? With the context of religion, the Bible study, but even applying what you're learning, it's you, if you're going to go to church every Sunday and then be a dick outside, it's not working. That's not the point. And again, I remain agnostic. Again, I'm a very curious person. I do believe in some sort of higher power. I don't really identify with any specific ideology when it comes to that. But again, I see the purpose of specific religions, and if you can use them for what they're there for, and then apply their principles to reality and make yourself a better person and make the people around you better, then that's awesome. And that's the way you want to do that.
Well, wouldn't it also be, I want to use religion. I guess I want to use religion because A, that's where I came from, and B, it's a very it's a common theme, right? So I think people
it's a tough topic too.
But I think people should be able to identify with it. So here's my thing, even in the Bible, because again, the Bible to me is an amazing manifesto. It's an amazing manifesto of how to treat one another, how to be useful, and how to get the most out of this human existence. So it's a great manifesto. You can find some wonderful moralistic writings in there. So what I mean by that is they refer to the body as a temple. So kind of going back to what we do. So, how could you be in religion, say for, you've been going to church since you were a kid and you're in your 30s now, but then you're overweight, you're on blood thinners, you're on insulin. So why didn't your 30-year devotion to the Word, to again the ideology, to being very passionate about this way of life, why hasn't that influenced you physically? Why again? So anything that isn't growing to me is dying. If you're not growing, you're dying. So it's you can't stop off anywhere and not be seeking a higher level of understanding somewhere, how to become a better parent, how to better be able to tolerate people that are not so tolerable all the time.
Which there's a lot of them.
Yeah, but you got to learn. You've got to learn how to deal. You've got to learn how to take control. And it's I don't like to just leave it in God's hands. If you know what I mean. I like to take – that's kind of – I'll get into these debates with my mom all the time. I love her to death, and she's a very avid Christian, and it's great. It makes her – she believes in something. I guess it's better than not believing in anything. And she just doesn't understand my approach. She's blind to the fact that somebody could live a great life without it.
if that makes sense. And I don't even know that I live without it. I continue to be curious and seek. And again, like I've developed my own kind of moral compass in my own mind that it works a lot better than like blindly following a book that, you know, like you said, has awesome information in it, but it was written a long, long time ago. And
it's a book built on application.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what we're going to. Like, you have to, don't quote me, show me.
Exactly, yeah. And don't like tell me how, like, again, like nobody's ever converted somebody by like aggressively approaching them like we don't get clients by aggressively approaching them and telling them what they need to be doing in their lives. Like that's why like
you can't afford to train with us, you can't afford not to train.
Yeah, with us. Right. Like shut the
fuck up.
Yeah,
Salesman
like,
101.
Yeah, and again, I think that's why this idea of like we're in the business of behavior and not training allows us to kind of bridge that gap where we work with people and like we just try to like show them one little thing at a time and present action steps so that they can see the result, right? That's how you get people to buy into anything. You know, so this aggressive nature that I often get. And again, it's mostly with my mom. I guess I don't find myself in like the people I surround myself with are not avid Christians. Like this is not the circles I roll in, you know. Whatever led me to not roll with those people, I don't know. But it's interesting how we can find our way. You know, there's many different streams that lead to the same pond, you know, and how we want to become indoctrinated into like our way of thinking and think that it's the right way of thinking. But that's like a trap. Again, like if everything's going to change and grow, like even what we're preaching today, like we might be on here in 2 months going like, we said some stupid shit a couple months ago. At least I almost hope that's what it is. Like,
because it means we're growing.
Exactly. Yeah. And again, I think I have 24 years old, man. I mean, like, it's been a lot of work. Like I've read so many books and like listened to so many podcasts and found so many great mentors and like sat and contemplated on like the way the world works and the way my brain works and how my brain can work with the world to make my life great. Like I've done extensive work at only 24 to do that. You know, and to me sometimes, you know, to your point with it's in God's hands, it's like it's a very easy way to not do that work.
To not do anything.
Exactly. Like the amount of time I spent reading books that I didn't want to read because, you know, I saw like what it could do for me if I learned and what learning can do for you and understanding and being curious and like always having an open mind can do for you, you know. So it's like you always say, you know, you can't stop off anywhere. You got to keep going. You know, like we're going to keep going. It's awesome.
Well, what is I got the Einstein quote: "Wisdom is not the product of schooling, but the lifelong attempt to acquire it."
I love it.
You know, I love that, and so that's what it is. It's like you should be. Again, let's say you're perfectly comfortable with your understanding of the world, the Creator, and your faith. Great. So my ask would be this: okay, then let's not talk about that anymore. But let me ask you about your like food. How through this journey of becoming closer to your understanding of why we're here and your Creator. So as people will say, as they've gotten closer, so my thing is, so you must eat a lot differently now. Like you must watch completely different television now. You must, you know, a lot of your friends a lot of your relationships have probably changed. So if people are still hanging around with the same people, still eating the same food, still having the same cheat meals like we talked about earlier, still watching the same TV, you know, maybe some people don't give to charity. Maybe, you know, if your environment, your charity, the level of awareness, your level of education, your desire to fulfill other things in your life hasn't grown with it, then really has anything changed? Like, isn't change motivated by more change?
It has to be. It has to be motivated by a curious mind and a willingness and desire to improve. And again, I think we look like you look at your career, like you want a promotion. How do you do it? You work harder. You work those extra hours. You take those extra projects. You develop skills that would get you to the next position. You get better. You grow in a positive way. And like you can do that for, I guess, a global life. Like your occupation is only one basket that needs to be filled. So like your health is another basket. Your relationships are another basket. Obviously your finances are a basket. So like you have to be assessing those all the time to see if those are coming up with the rest of, you can't just have one. Then you're out of balance and out of whack, and then you're the quacko that's always telling people how to live their life. But like it's like taking financial advice from a guy that's broke and in debt.
I love that. That's my favorite. Like I don't take stock advice from homeless people.
It's like if I was some fat slob that ate pizza while telling people to do squats.
Absolutely.
Like, why are you going to listen to me? I'm not authentic in any way. I'm living a lie, right? So that's a cool thought though. I like that. I like the idea of challenging people that I do know that want to be aggressive. Because again, like I know what I know and I know what I don't know, and what I don't know is way more than what I do know. And obviously we're on a podcast right now, so I think I speak a lot more than I would like to. But we're having a conversation and developing ideas through it. But I had a point, and it just slipped my mind. It's about time. It's about 1 o'clock. We've been up since 4.
Yeah,
my brain's pretty much fried.
So it's like I think again, our hiatus from our podcast, our willingness to present our business through our personal journey. Again, it's very scary. It's a very vulnerable position to be in. But I've adopted the push-pull system. I've acknowledged it. I've acknowledged the different levels that humans can exist on. So by having a better understanding of the different levels humans can exist on based on the aforementioned, things of, again, who you're surrounded with, where you're born, they create certain opportunities. But now I'm constantly seeking change that I don't understand. So in other words, I love, to your point, when people said to me, man, you're a lot different than you used to be. I don't really care what they say. I'm very thankful for that, because my entire days are different now. That my entire approach to life is different now. My entire approach to other human beings, even the ones that flip me off on the road, has completely changed. So what's the worst that can come from that? Knowledge? What's the worst that can come from that? Understanding. And again, if I have those things, if I have more knowledge, if I have more education, if I have more understanding, and my business didn't bring in, millions of dollars a year, did I fail? Did anything fail? No, I don't think so at all. I think, what is life but a journey? What is life but an experience? But, maybe part of the experience is the failed business. Maybe part of life's experience is getting laid off from a job. Maybe that's the experience.
Yeah, and acquisition of materials, aka money, is not. I mean, this has been studied to the end of the world and back, is not a definitive factor in happiness.
Right.
Like relative income to be able to sustain life and the mild pleasures is. But I love the idea, man. I think, and I kind of started to remember what I was talking about earlier about like assessing and challenging people that think they have it figured out, right? And I guess we kind of talk about it like we kind of have some things figured out, but I think we always give the statement that we don't, and that we're just kind of giving our best foot forward right now.
That was the motivation for me. I think you probably agree behind the podcast is the podcast, and we've mentioned it in other podcasts. I didn't want to come down here and spend, an hour creating some notes and then an hour sitting around talking about some shit that I assume to be an expert on. To me, words are thoughts. And so we're just like, hey, I've got this idea of something I want to learn more about. You want to sit down and talk about it? And then you're like, yeah, let's do it. You're always a yes for any of these ideas. So I think that's what we're doing is we're just kind of, putting some thoughts out there, making ourselves vulnerable. I think even with our topics, the things that we choose, we're putting ourselves out there. We are making ourselves vulnerable. We're not here to offend anybody. We're here to grow. And if any of our listeners have something that they think they can add to this and say, hey, have you guys ever thought about that? Like, send us an email, send me a text message, send me a Facebook message and say some things you guys might want to think about, because that's ultimately what we're here to do is like, hey, I was kind of thinking like this. What do you think about that? And then just trying to, break things down and learn and grow somewhere, somehow, some way.
And anybody that would listen and get offended potentially needs to assess the reasoning for their offense.
Right.
And maybe just think that our intentions were not to offend and that maybe we're uneducated on the topic that we were, talking shit about.
I'm okay with ignorance.
Yeah, exactly. So, and again, like if you can, I love being proven wrong. Like the only time I think I ever get aggressive, I don't even like that word because I never try to be aggressive in thoughts, but again, like forwarding bad information is dangerous. I mean, I think we can all agree on that, So like when I'm in situations, and what I was going to kind of say earlier is like I try not to talk unless it's obvious that like I've put in more work to like understand these things that we're now talking about, and especially if somebody's saying something that's ridiculous. Usually I'll let them just completely finish because my curious mind wants to know how they even got to this delusional thought. But then in those circumstances, and again, I try to do it in a very non-aggressive way, try to educate on like the reality of certain things, because I feel like it's a duty and obligation when you go down these rabbit holes. Like I've decided to try to make myself better every day. Like I've decided that I'm going to read an hour to 3 hours every day, and I've sustained that, give or take days for almost a few years now, right? So like with that knowledge that I've acquired from people way smarter than me, I feel like it's my duty and obligation to forward on some of that good information, right? And in the process, maybe I say things that offend people. I definitely get things wrong here and there. Oh, yeah. But again, like you said, it's we just kind of leaped off the ledge and we decided we're just going to talk shit for an hour, and whatever comes out the other side. Yeah. We're up to like almost 600 hours of listened podcasts. So hopefully we've enlightened somebody. Yeah, but
I know it almost cracked an egg, which we probably would have spent another hour on a book that, again, you talked about like not having any emotions about something that you don't know anything about. Like it's okay to be ignorant. It really is. I just got done with Steven Pinker's book Enlightenment Now. It's phenomenal. It's just really, it's about, he uses data to deconstruct people's inability to rationalize. They're like, we're as close to the end of the world as we've ever been. And I'm like, no, like if ever, like this is the most stable the world has ever been. Like we don't have world wars anymore. Like we don't have famine anymore. Like we don't have major disease that's like just wiping out millions of people. So no, I think before you're going to, prophesy that this is the end of times, like maybe you should collect a little data on that.
Yeah.
Maybe
be intelligent.
Like actually, like no, crime is down. Now, but remember, crime is down statistically when we have like billions more people in the world. So that means crime, if it's down percentage-wise, now spread out over 7 billion people, like crime is down like an enormous amount of instances, like millions of less instances. Remember, back, 100 years ago, there was a whole lot less people on the earth.
Way less.
Half.
More than half.
Right. So we've quadrupled the population and yet still gotten better at all those things. Yeah. So
and now we're killing ourselves by eating too much instead of not having enough food. It's crazy.
Well, it's in that book. Obesity is now like it's a completely different term. I'm sorry. Poverty is a completely different term that it used to be. Remember, poverty back just 70 years ago was people that didn't have shoes, that actually skipped meals, and maybe didn't have heat and running water. Where poverty today is led by obesity. Does that make any fucking sense at all? That poor people are the most overweight people? Like, so what do you pour in then? You're obviously not poor in food. So what do we pour in? Knowledge? Values, morals? Again, an understanding of poverty. So yeah, we may be poor, but I think we might just be poor in understanding. So that's why I love hashing things out. Because I'm going to have a day. I'm going to have a day where I'm pissed off about something and think that I know everything that's about. I'd rather just be able to rationalize and say, no, Ben, you just didn't get a whole lot of sleep last night. Get a better night's sleep, and I bet you the world's a better place tomorrow.
Yeah, and again, there's nothing. I had this conversation. We got to wrap this up in a minute, but with my wonderful soon-to-be wife the other day about, we were just getting into it about just a couple little household things.
Very wonderful.
Very wonderful. But, I was just, as we got, a little more emotionally charged from it, I just kind of detached myself from the situation. And I've gotten, very good, and it's taken me a long time to develop this skill, because that's what it is. But I'm very good at, I guess I can use compartmentalizing, if you will, but, I'm really good at taking something that should be very upsetting and only allowing myself a very short amount of time to be upset about it. Because again, nothing productive ever happens from that heightened state of negative emotion. And there's no sense other than culturally that we should mourn, right? Let's use death for example. Culturally, especially like in the 21st century, like in 2018, like if someone dies, like everybody should be feeling really bad. Like that's just like a known cultural thing that we have now. But why make myself suffer more over something that's already terrible, right? And then assessing the situation and thinking, do you think this person that died, that's no longer here, that's potentially in the universal bliss of the universal one,
is going to come back and say, "Why aren't you crying?"
Yeah, like, well, yeah, exactly. Like this isn't North Korea, right? Like this isn't Kim Jong-il, like, or whatever the fuck his name is, like making people cry because he's a dictator. Like you don't have to be upset. And I was just trying to explain this. Like we don't have to get emotionally charged over something that's so ridiculous and trivial. Like this is something like in the grand scale of our relationship, having a conversation about cleaning more should not upset us this much.
That's the scale. That's
the scale.
Yeah.
Like the scale is like tomorrow we're going to laugh about it. And in 2 weeks we're going to laugh about it even harder. And in 6 years, I hope we never have this happen again. And then we look back on the way we used to communicate and we laugh at ourselves. We say, can't believe we were such idiots. Mm-hmm. And we would just allow ourselves to get emotionally charged over conversations that had no bearing on like the long-term existence of us living together.
Absolutely.
So I think you can take that approach to everything, no matter what you're upset about, no matter whether you just lost your job, whether you just got cut off in traffic, whether your girlfriend just left you. Just like take a big breath and realize it's not that big of a deal and that you'll continue to exist.
What is it? What I wrote down, just our listening audience, by deconstructing yesterday's thoughts makes room for new thoughts today. So, each day we are, reincarnated, if you will. I love looking at sleep as like part of the life-death cycle, because if you don't dream, I just wake up and I lost 8 hours of my life. It's like I feel like I was dead. But yeah, like I think that's sometimes what reincarnation means to me is the newness and the opportunity that each day presents. So, that's what we're challenging everybody with. Like, if you think your training is spot on, focus on your food. If you think both of those are spot on, do something charitable. Go outside your comfort zone, go to the places that you don't understand it at all. And maybe we can really push our potential by also, kind of lifting up some of our worst days and our worst behaviors. So I hope somebody will get something from that. So, but I thank you for the conversation.
Yeah, man. As always, an hour and 10 minutes. A little 10
Not
minutes.
Bad. I feel like I got some more in the tank, bro. Like I got a couple.
I think I need a nap.
All right, we'll do naps then.
All right. Thanks to everyone who tunes in, and we will be back and consistent now that we have this wonderful new microphone. We didn't want shitty sound quality for you, so we made excuses for 2 weeks. And we will see y'all soon. Later. Thanks again for tuning in, guys. Just want to give a quick shout to our sponsor, the Inflow Wellness Academy, located in Plymouth, Michigan. Make sure you check them out at inflowacademy.com, on Facebook and YouTube at Inflow Wellness Academy, and Instagram at Inflow Academy. Mention that you're a listener of the Finding Flow podcast and receive some awesome discounts on our exceptional services over at the Inflow Wellness Academy. These services include personal training through semi-private and private. We offer yoga, massage therapy, laser therapy, group classes, just about anything you need to optimize your life. We'll guide you through nutrition, we'll guide you through supplementation, we'll help you build a strong mind and help you achieve a better state of flow on the day-to-day basis. So make sure you check them out. And once again, thanks for tuning in to the Finding Flow podcast.